Every year on the 11th of November, we mark Veterans Day by paying tribute to the Americans who served this country. But this year, parades, ceremonies, and other events across the U.S., including Texas, Virginia, and Hawaii, are being altered or even canceled due to the longest government shutdown in American history. This weekend's Veterans Day parade in Detroit did not have the Army Band, the helicopter flyover from Selfridge Air National Guard Base, or members of the U.S. Coast Guard.
Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other veteran service organizations that help us support the parade. They come out in the thousands, so we're going to have a lot of people there, military vehicles that people own. They have their own collections. But it's not going to be the same without it.
Detroit's parade manager and veteran Jerry Eden telling Fox 2 last week. The disruption to this year's Veterans Day celebration comes at a time when military families are also dealing with flight delays, uncertainty about food assistance, and when or whether they may receive a paycheck. And while there are signs in Washington an end to the shutdown is within reach, some veteran programs remain closed and other services unavailable. Doug Collins is the 12th United States Secretary of Veterans Affairs.
So, I want to pick up our conversation with the news of the day, which is, of course, the ongoing government shutdown. There is optimism that we are in the final days of the longest government shutdown in history. But of course, I have to ask, how has this shutdown impacted your really important agency and the services that is providing to veterans in this country?
Well, it's been an effect. And, just to start off with, though, and just to confirm for everybody, as long as this shutdown continues, our hospitals are open, our clinics are open. So anybody needing health care, those are fully funded, and our employees are being paid. They're there. So don't let anybody, a veteran, fearful that they can't get their health care services, and disability payments are going out and being still processed. It slowed down our one-on-one interaction with veterans. We've had to close regional offices. It's slowed everything up, and it's been an effect. Think about it. If you're just really getting ready to try and get a new career coming out of the military, and all of a sudden you can't talk to your VR&E counselor, you can't talk and get the money that you were supposed to get, that can throw people off and maybe lose jobs or lose opportunities, and that's really a tragic part of this. I'm hopeful this is going to end. We still have veterans who, unfortunately, on SNAP, that they've been kept away from those benefits. So this is not good for anybody, and for any member of Congress who thinks this is good, and they hold back on a policy discussion that could be solved in the normal ways, is really doing a disservice, I think, to our veterans and to our country as a whole.
I think you are right on the money. It really is a disservice. And when you think about just kind of the anxiety and the stress that military members and their families have been through, wondering about, getting paid. Of course, they have been so far, but so it's good that this shutdown is ending. Do you think, with respect to the slowdown in the services that you mentioned for outreach services, for career services, is that going to pick right up where it left off?
Yeah, our folks are ready to come back. The minute we get the money, they'll be back in and going at it, and we'll be working extra hard to bring down that caseload that's backed up right now, especially in our vocational rehab and education department. We're going to be doing the best we can to get those down as quickly as possible. We just ask for a little bit of patience. Our folks, it's not their fault. It's Congress's fault. If you want to gripe at somebody, call the Senate. Call the Senate Democrats, call the other Senate, call the House members, whoever you need to. They gripe at them. Don't gripe at my employees. They're doing the best they can, and they will get your process as quickly and as fairly as they possibly can.
Fair point there, Secretary. I also want to ask you about celebrations on this Veterans Day. Always something to look forward to, even in the weekend ahead. And of course, we've seen the shutdown, unfortunately, impacting some of these celebrations. We saw the cancellation of, for example, flyovers over the football games over this past weekend. I'm seeing local news reports across the country where some communities are having to cancel the parades or other types of observances because they just don't have the resources or the access to facilities that they would need. What are your thoughts as you are seeing that people are just not able to show their respects in ways that maybe they traditionally have been?
Yeah, it's sad. It really is that they've allowed this circus to continue as long as they have, and now it's impacting one of the more important days we have in this country, and that's celebrating the fact that people are willingly raise their right hand and go into the military and keep us the freest, safest country in the world, that allows them to sit in Congress and to do the things that they do. The very foundational freedom of who we are is sort of a hyperbole that comes out of Congress is very lost on those who actually give them the freedom to do what they do. So it's frustrating. We're going to have the president, vice president, and I will be at Harlingen tomorrow. We're going to be celebrating with veterans over there, and there's services around. But it has in the past there's been some issues about whether we have things at our VA cemeteries in particular that are not going to happen, and that's mainly because all my cemetery employees have not been paid in a month, and they can't do certain things under the shutdown. So whereas in the past we provided simple things as porta-johns and traffic control and chairs and things like that, we can't do that. So I would ask the groups if they wanted to, they can still bring those in, they can still do it themselves. It's just understand that right now by funding, we cannot do that. But we hope everybody will at least take the time to remember our veterans tomorrow.
Absolutely. Always remember our veterans and express our gratitude, our deep gratitude to them. And as we are preparing to do that on this really important day, Veterans Day, I do want to ask you about some of the initiatives, that you've started since you've been in office in February. Since you've taken office, I've heard you talk a lot about putting veterans first. And I think that's really been translated through a lot of your focus on, how the services are being relayed and delivered to veterans and their families. I've heard you talk about, electronic records access, increasing access to appointments for medical services outside of regular hours, and really importantly, increasing access to services even outside of Veterans Affairs provided service providers in the community. I want to know what your thoughts are about kind of progress so far this year, what you're most proud of, where you think you've seen the most kind of transformation so far in the VA?
I think the best comes from a simple change of culture here at the VA, going to the fact that the veteran is the only reason we exist in the mornings. When we get up every day to take care of a veteran, we don't come to work to take care of an organization. We're not as focused on our bureaucratic maze that is a large organization called the VA. We're saying, what can we do internally? And I'm so proud of our workforce to taking on the vision of saying the reason we do what we do is the veteran. And that's led to some great things, like you've mentioned, the accesses that we have had for healthcare. But it's also meant that we've taken out 150,000 of backlog disability claims that were over 125 days old. These were 260,000 claims sitting here when I got here in February. We're down to under 115 now. We've lowered the total amount of claims from over 1 million to under 600,000. I mean, those are kind of things that only come when you start putting focus on what matters in our healthcare. As you've already listed some things of scheduling, community care access being open. That's what it means to actually change the culture to putting the focus on veterans and not ourselves.
Yeah, it seems to me like you've got some real wins to celebrate. Like you just mentioned, the backlog under the last administration, backlog of veterans waiting for benefits increased by 24%, but under your watch down by 45%. So real big kudos and some debt of gratitude there. So thank you very much. I also wanted to ask you about homelessness, because we've heard President Trump and the Trump administration, making that a priority, addressing veterans' homelessness. And there have been some interesting initiatives. He signs an executive order, and there are plans to, say, for example, build housing specifically for veterans. We're seeing that out in Los Angeles. I think the target date for completion there, 2028. Wondering if you can give us a status update on what that looks like. Is that coming to fruition? Could that be a model for other types of housing projects across the country?
Yeah, it's coming along fine. I mean, we've had a big issue out at West LA. There's been frankly, some issues out there that shouldn't have happened with some leaseors out there, this school and some other things. But we're working through those, getting us back on track to meet that 6,000 number that the president had asked for temporary and permanent housing. We're going to do everything we can to completely make that happen, and we're on track to do that. We're also encouraging our hospitals and others to reach out in their communities, their clinics, to go out in the communities, and we're doing this through November and December and into January to make sure that we're going to where homeless veterans are, those without shelter, and see if we can get them into temporary shelters or transitional housing. We're also working with outside organizations to use their resources as well, folks like Tunnels to Towers and others who are able to provide housing for veterans. And at the same point in time for us, especially for those of us in the, we have a VASH program where they're allowed to get not tuition assistance, but actually rental assistance to get into temporary housing or permanent housing. They actually get wraparound services, which means that they can also get help for mental health issues, financial conditions, addictions, those things that may have caused the homelessness to start with.
And I want to ask you about mental health. I've heard you speak about this, Secretary, where, if there is an issue that keeps you up at night, I've heard you say it's mental health for our veterans. Where are we? What is your assessment of that issue for our veteran community? What more work remains to be done there?
It's a community effort. I think you've hit it perfectly, but it's something for us. We spend over $500 million a year in prevention of death by suicide, which is a derivative out of mental health issues, PTS, CTE, those kind of things, TBI, traumatic brain injury. And we were not hitting the right population. And I think how we found that out was about 60% of those who had death by suicide had never been in contact with the VA. So we've changed the whole department, leadership, and everything else. We're focused now on outside the VA, not the ones basically talking to ourselves. That's why I go on influencers podcasts. That's why I do interviews like this. We're working with major league sports, college sports, even hunting, fishing, and alternate ways to go where people are watching media on social media and others, that these veterans can find out, hey, there are access to benefits that you may not know about. There are people who care. And of course, we have the Veteran Crisis Line 988, and they can press 1 and they can talk to anybody anytime. But I think it's also something you mentioned, the community. The community needs to look out for each other. For veterans, we always have the saying, no man left behind. Well, that still applies true even after we get out. So I encourage our veterans and our non-veterans as well. Reach out to veterans, reach out to some that may be struggling, and make sure you're there for them because they need you now more than ever.
It's always important to celebrate and recognize the contributions of our veterans. And, on this Veterans Day, it seems appropriate for me to also acknowledge that the Marine Corps turned 250 years old this week. I feel especially excited about that since I have an immediate family member who is a veteran of the Marine Corps. But Secretary, I want to ask you your thoughts about, just on this Veterans Day, what do you want our veteran community to know and hear about from you?
I want them to know that the Secretary of VA cares, I'm so proud to have served alongside so many of them for the last 25 plus years of my career and my adult life. They're some of the best that America has to offer. And whether they served in wartime or peace, it doesn't matter. Their service is what is the thing that matters. And, such a smaller population of our country actually serves in the military now, but they're the very backbone of the freedoms that we get to express every day. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you, your families. Families are such a vital part of this as well. I look forward to many more years of service together.
Secretary Doug Collins, thank you so much for your time. Happy Veterans Day to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to be with you.